fiends, friends, and familiars. This is your old pal Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I am joined by none other than man, myth, legend, I'd say, actor, producer, director, writer, Jeff Daniel Phillips. Thanks for spending some
Mm,
time with me, Jeff.
right. You're welcome. You're welcome.
And,
Um,
congr and congratulations on Kirsten Baja, your featured directorial debut. Just for those watching and listening to this, you can catch Kirsten Baja on VOD on October 29th, so next week. And if you're a physical media collector like myself, 12/15, December 15th, you can pick it up on Blu-ray or DVD. So,
Through
Jeff,
Anchor Bay Entertainment is the ones that are producing it, but I think you could pre-order it on Amazon also.
oh, excellent. I'll see if I can find a pre-order link and drop it
Yeah,
in the show notes.
definitely.
And it was great to see Anchor Bay's name come back because they have, as a physical media fan, they've been a huge part of my horror fandom. So, uh,
Yeah.
Jeff, I want to get into some questions with you. The first one is, when did you begin working on what would eventually become Kirsten Baja?
So it was almost 2 years ago. I went to a convention in Michigan, Grand Rapids Comic Con, and I go to these conventions, a lot of horror conventions, and this one was we were promoting the Munsters at the time, Rob Zombie's The Munsters, and they set me up to speak to a bunch of young filmmakers, and I wasn't really prepared necessarily. It was a Sunday morning, but once I got in there with them, they were so excited to ask questions, and I was trying to tell them how you pull off low budget filmmaking because I've done a bunch of shorts and music videos, and I also did another feature that didn't. It wasn't a great experience. It wasn't supported great. So this was one of the reasons I took time from doing that again was that. So anyway, I'm back with these kids. I'm answering questions, telling them about digital cameras, sound, doing table reads, and then what's most important is making your list of what you have access to, and it comes to locations, actors, props, vehicles, whatever, and then create and work on your script around what you have. So in doing so, I did that. I got out of it. I went back to Los Angeles. So I ended up being, it's almost like I got more out of it than they did. And I was telling my friend, this producer, Kent Isaacs, and I said, yeah, it was amazing. I just came out of it all charged up. And he goes, well, why don't we just do it? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, it sounds like we could do the same thing. And we have this friend in Mexico who has a farm, and we just started making a list of what we have. And then I just knocked out a script pretty quickly. I roughed it in, and I used some pieces from other scripts. And anyway, I had this script, and we were just going to go down to Mexico, just almost like a test. But then we just started shooting, and we were on the streets of Tijuana. We were at this farm. It just kind of snowballed, and we also had we knew we had a strike pending.
Oh yeah.
So we had like 5 months to pull this off. So again, we just went for it. We went down to Mexico with the cameraman, and we just started shooting. And we got some great stuff. I came back, I looked at what we had, and then I just retooled the script some more just to make sure we had what we needed. And we doubled that ranch in California so I could use the actors there because of our budget. It was so low, I couldn't bring a bunch of actors down to
Right.
Mexico and put them up. And quite frankly, the way we were doing it was just, it was a little insane. On the streets of Tijuana, it's just like you do not want to be shooting. We were just stealing shots and running around, and we had some
Larry
crazy.
Cohen style, you know?
Oh, it was nuts. And then there's like military, they're moving through the streets, and it was just insane. Anyway, that's how it started. We are excited. And then we continue to shoot over the next 5 months based on our DP, our cinematographer's time frame. He was working, and we'd shoot a few days here and another week here, and then maybe a day or an afternoon here. And that's how we ended up piecing it together over 5 months.
I think what's so interesting about how you're talking about this is one that you kind of were giving this advice that you ended up taking yourself, right? And then
Totally.
the next is, you even though you work within, the industry now, you've been in film for over decades now. So it's like you've got a space carved out for yourself, but you're still using the tactics that so many independents are using as well. So it's just nice to hear that, like, that independent spirit still thrives, despite having, work coming to you in other ways. And there's so many inspirations, it seems like, that, kind of narratively and also aesthetically. So I'm curious to know where you were looking at, or what, you mentioned you borrowed some things from old scripts, but were there any specific films or maybe looks of things that you were using as a reference point?
Well, the whole idea based on our budget, and I started thinking about the films that first inspired me to get into filmmaking. And it was basically we decided this was going to be an ode to the B movie. And it's the genre movies, the horror, the western, the crime, the sci-fi. And it's those films, they're just efficient, they're low budget, uh, and they a lot of times they push the narrative because they have to, they're playing with things because of the budget. And then also in the horror world, I think the audiences are more open to like see people experimenting, see a certain person's voice, a filmmaker's voice. And we did a lot of nonlinear editing and I guess the other thing between that was with the genre, trying to do that and those B movies, like the movies I'd say in Svengoolie and Creature Features and stuff where I grew up in Chicago. That was one inspiration. Then the other thing was these radio plays I used to listen to, noir plays. And I always loved that. So I tried to weave that into it too. And I mean, I think it worked. It's a crazy hybrid, but I think it keeps the audience kind of guessing and it's not exactly predictable.
Right.
How's that?
No, I would agree. And I think it's got a kinetic energy to it that, as you were describing the filming process, it almost shows up in the movie as far as kind of the way things look and the way they feel. It almost feels kind of guerrilla filmmaking, at its finest. And you've worked in shorts before. This is this you mentioned you've directed in the past and written some of your own work. But this being your, kind of big feature debut in this, what are the lessons that you picked up along the way through acting and through your other endeavors that you're able to bring into Kirsten Baja, excuse me.
The lessons, uh, I suppose one of the big influences is Rob Zombie, who I've worked with a bunch, and one of the things he does is he has his script. We go in there prepared, ready to go. And sometimes if he sees something not working, he's able to just pivot and do something else, remove something that's not working. If something's great, he expands on it. And I've always admired him for being able to have the confidence to do so. So when you're working at this low of a budget and you don't have a huge crew and you don't, you're everybody, you don't have to get okays from the higher ups. It's just your group. You're able to do this. And if you don't like the way things are going, you could redo it or, rewrite it or just, I don't know, get rid of it altogether. There was something freeing about that. It wasn't so structured where I had to follow a storyboard or something.
Yeah.
And again, because it was in pieces, I'd work with my editor and then we look at it and oh, this is a piece of puzzle that's missing. Let's try to get this in. That's why for instance, Barbara Crampton's part, her part wasn't in that. And I just felt like there was something missing. I needed a certain voice of like clarity, some voice that this character hears that kind of helps guide them and she's always been like that for me anyway, which is kind of ironic. She's always been very good about advice and very supportive, and she loves indies and she loves the horror community, and they love her. So yeah, she became the voice in the film, which I originally didn't have in the script. So yeah, it was cool. It was loose. It was more like a jazz thing that was starting to happen, and I think it works. And of course, when you're doing an independent thing like this and you're supported by all your friends, you're able to pull this off.
Right.
You know, if you have a bunch of people that they're looking at their watch, what are you doing? You're not. We're not getting that. We're not making our day. It could kind of throw things off, especially in this level.
Yeah. And, I did notice that you just had a showing in Chicago, and I think you had a few folks out there. I mean, how did it feel to have your film show and where you grew up?
Well, that was super cool because I got there early so I could go on WGN and do an interview. And the first time I've been on a set was on the same stage that they interviewed me on, and it was a set they did Bozo on.
I
And as a
used to
kid, I
watch
went to go
Bozo.
see Bozo. Yeah, like 7 or 8 years old. I was there, and you could see in the back wall some of the drawings from the actual set and stuff. And so here I am going to see Bozo as a kid on the screen, and then fast forward, decades later, and I'm the Bozo on the screen. So there you go. Yeah, it was crazy. And then during the shoot or during the screening, the premiere, people were showing up from my childhood. I hadn't seen it in 40
Wow.
years or something. And it was just weird, just because I guess they follow on Facebook and whatnot. But it was super sweet and super supportive, and a lot of family members. And yeah, it was great. And it was a great theater. This group called Terror in the Isles. It's a great I think they're doing something with Joe Bob. I think at a
Fun.
drive-in, I think in a week, 2 weeks. So they're just this cinephile group that loves this stuff, especially the B movies. So they embraced it. They asked me to, I talked to them. They go, yeah, please come. We have a theater for you. So it just happened to fall into place. I did one in London at Fright Fest, one in Los Angeles, and that was through Cinematic Void and American Cinematheque, and then the one in Chicago. So I don't need any more. I got my my fill, and everybody's been super great, and now let's get it on the internet so people could check it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just imagine how much of a exciting rush that is to kind of have your film show up and have all these people show out for it. And, I also noticed that you used Vol, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, it's Vol, um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
for the music, who'd previously done some work on A Wounded Fawn. So how did that connection come about?
So again, Kent Isaacs is my producer, and his son is good friends with Val,
Huh.
and they're all Swedes. And the Swedish community is very supportive of each other. So I happened to just fall into that. That wasn't planned, and yeah, I'm extremely lucky to have such a talented composer. I mean, they create the soundscapes, and he's just like a mad scientist with the effects and the music and everything. He's amazing. I would love to use him again for sure.
Yeah, it definitely adds a nice atmosphere to the film overall, and again adds that kinetic energy that I think propels everything forward. And you mentioned a little bit of the shooting schedule already. It sounds like you did a lot of this kind of on location for the most part, both in Tijuana and California. Did you do any soundstage work at all for this, or was it all pretty much just where
The
you could
only
find space?
soundstage we used was like 3 hours in the prison thing with Barbara Crampton, prison set. That was it. Everything else is places that exist. So after film school, I got involved in I wanted to learn more about acting to be able to direct. And so I took these acting classes, and then I fell into this playwriting group and theater group, and it was started by Sam Shepard back in the 80s, I think. Um, anyway, this group is site specific. It's an underground theater group. And so I ended up doing that for a decade. And I brought some of that energy into this film like that. It's like I don't know. We would create things wherever we could. We didn't have to rely necessarily on a theater. I did like some great performance at a Chinese restaurant and parking garage. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah,
that's the kind of spirit that we took onto this film. It's like, okay, we got a location, let's do the acting there. And I think it works. I'm assuming it does.
it
But
definitely does. My opinion at least, it definitely does. And again, I think that improvisational element kind of adds to the overall story. It doesn't show up, right? It's not as a viewer. It's not like I'm saying, "Oh, this looks like they're improving it," or it more
well, it's
just
actually
feels
we're not necessarily improving. So
okay.
it's more of like working it out a little and then just throwing it in another location. It's actually scripted and a little improving, but not really that much.
Okay.
It's more of just taking it on the road, putting it in another location. It wasn't about improving, actually. A few lines here and there, but it was pretty much, down to what was on the script.
Excellent. Well, my last question I always love to ask folks is, if you were asked to program a double feature and Kirsten Baja is one of the films, what is a film you'd like to pair up with it?
So again, when I was a kid, those movies, the B movies, my parents took me to this film when I was way too young. It was called Race with the Devil.
Oh
And it
yeah.
was Peter Fonda, Warren Oates, and Loretta Swit, and this other lady I should look up at some point. But anyway, they're in RV, they go down, they're camping, and motorcycles. So when I was a kid, that's what we would do. We had a trailer and motorcycles. And my parents take me, and I'm just a tiny kid, and I'm watching this, and then all of a sudden there's a sacrifice, human sacrifice on a fire, and then the rest of the movie is chaotic, and they're chasing these people down, and the people are scarier than any creature. It was just insane. So uh, it inspired Kirsten Baja when it definitely was an influence, and that's why I threw the dirt bike in and some of the desert landscapes. But that would be a cool double feature in my mind. I think you go, okay, this is Kirsten Baja, and this is the movie that, definitely inspired or planted a seed in my head when I was a boy,
I mean,
a
they
scared boy.
definitely share that kind of frantic, just go, go, go. Once it, because yeah, Race to the Devil's a great film, great to pair up with it. So, Jeff, I just want to say thank you for this time, for the conversation. And just a reminder, everyone watching this, that Kirsten Baja will be available on VOD on October 29th from Anchor Bay Entertainment. Again, for physical media fans, you can wait until December on the 15th. You can grab it on Blu-ray and DVD. If I find the pre-order link, I will definitely put that in the show notes so folks can go ahead and sign up for it. And Jeff, I know I speak on behalf of myself and my colleagues that we can't wait to see what you're doing next. So thanks for the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And what I am doing next is I'm going to be on Dexter Original Sin. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
all
I
I can
saw your
say.
post about that.
Yeah,
Congrats.
that's all I could say. Can't say anything more, but if you're asking what I'm doing next, keep an eye out for that. But more importantly, Kirsten Baja, check it out on the internet. And I'll be posting something soon on which platforms. I know Amazon and several others, but I'm not going to say that right now because I'm not quite sure. But it'll be next week. It'll all drop.
Well, we'll make sure everyone has the right links to the right places so they can go and check it out. It has our full endorsement. And Jeff,
Oh,
again,
also there might be
yes.
a vinyl too.
Oh, the
Vinyl,
soundtrack.
yes, because you
Okay.
and you mentioned Val, and we're in the process. We put it together, and that might be announced soon too, which is really exciting. The group that's doing it, so the company that's backing it, they want to do it. We just have to figure out some of the paperwork, but that's going to be very really that'll be right away actually. So
Well,
cool
I've got a
stuff.
little space over here in the record collection for it.
Yes,
So
yes, I see that.
I'll make sure everyone knows where to get the vinyl when it's ready. And Jeff, it sounds like you got a lot going on with Curse of Baja. So I genuinely hope everyone goes out and sees it. I wish you as much success as possible with this release, and whatever else comes with it. And then, of course, looking forward to seeing you on the new Dexter series. So
Yeah. Okay.
thanks again,
Well, thank
Jeff.
you so much.
My
Take care.
pleasure.
Bye bye.